All right, folks, so welcome and welcome back if you've been here before. Today's webinar is titled Changing Careers. You've decided, now what's next? And my name is Keith Spencer, one of the career coaches here at FlexJobs. While we're giving everyone a minute to get in and get settled, please feel free to share where you're joining us from today in the chat section. Before we dive in, I'm going to cover a few housekeeping items. While you are welcome to take notes during today's presentation, this webinar will be recorded, and a link to the video, as well as the resources discussed within the presentation, will be sent out within a week to the email address you used to register for today's event. Please note that the presentation has been pre-recorded, but the Q&A following the presentation will be conducted live with one or more of our coaches. If you have a question, please put it in the Q&A section, not the chat section. This really helps us keep track of questions in one place, and the Q&A section also allows you to click a thumbs up if someone else has asked a question that you're interested in, so that we can see which questions are the most popular. We probably won't be able to get to everyone's questions today, but we can almost guarantee that you will learn something. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So here's a quick overview of what we'll be covering today. Our topics include evaluating your career change plan, identifying ways to build your skills and experience, adjusting your job search tactics, and we'll finish with our live audience Q&A. Our goal for this webinar is to provide some things to consider once you have determined the direction in which you want to go with your change in career. This webinar is perfect for job seekers who have decided they want to change career paths and have already determined their new career goals, or even for those who are simply considering a change and want to make sure that they are well prepared before taking that next step in their career. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into our first topic, which is evaluating your career change plan. So before diving into your change in career path, you want to evaluate the following things to determine how best to move forward. The first thing you'll want to evaluate is how you chose your new career path. Ideally, career changes should take place after a good amount of self-reflection and consideration of all your potential options. You want to make sure that you've chosen a new path that will bring you the type of professional fulfillment you're seeking, but is also something that you are capable of successfully doing professionally. The next thing to consider is whether you are planning a significant change or simply transitioning to a different role within your same field. Considering this question is important because the answer can impact the amount of time and effort that your career change might take. That's not to dissuade you from making a change that might require more time and effort, but it is important to know what you're committing to before you make that change. Next, you'll want to assess what skills, education, or experience you might be missing. It's important to think about the things you potentially lack so you can start to develop an action plan, which we will discuss later, for how to compensate for those potential deficits. Identifying the skills you need, credentials that could be required, or levels of experience that might be preferred can help you create an effective action plan to begin your new career. Lastly, you want to evaluate what transferable skills you might already possess that could be helpful in this new field. In the same way that you should know your deficits, you also want to know what you already bring to the table. No matter what career path you're trying to pursue, chances are you have at least some transferable skills, whether soft skills or technical skills, that you will want to identify and showcase to potential future employers. Fully understanding what skills you already possess in comparison to what you might be lacking can help you understand how easy or how challenging your planned career change could be. So on this slide, you'll see a screenshot from the website onetonline.org. There are quite a few websites available like ONET Online where you can learn a lot of information about different careers. Chances are you may have already used websites like this to help you determine what career changes you wanted to make. These types of websites can be extremely valuable in understanding the intricacies of different roles, determining the technical and transferable skills you might need for these roles, and a wide range of other helpful information for you to consider as you prepare to make your career change. So here's a screenshot from a website called careeronestop.org. Similar to ONET, Career One Stop can also help you determine the type of education and training most commonly required for different roles. This type of information is important to research beforehand because the career in which you are trying to enter might have certain requirements that you need to fulfill before you can make your transition. If a particular job you are considering requires a certain degree level or a specific type of license or certification, you want to be aware so you can establish a plan for obtaining these qualifications. So on this slide, we're going to talk about other research methods that you can employ to further evaluate your career change plan. Keep in mind, conducting research is really helpful in making informed decisions as you transition to a new role. So in addition to websites like ONET and Career One Stop, you can also review position descriptions for jobs that closely match your new career of choice. Position descriptions for jobs that you are hoping to pursue are a great way to determine what qualifications, skills, and experience you should have to make you a qualified candidate for these types of roles. You also want to make sure that you understand your audience and what they are seeking in potential candidates so you can make yourself attractive to possible future employers. Be sure to look carefully at whether certain qualifications are required or preferred, and also keep in mind the 60% rule. If you review a description and can confidently say that you have done or can do at least 60% of what is listed, then you can consider yourself a solid candidate for that role. Obviously, your chances will be higher if you're at the 70, 80, 90% range, but the 60% rule is a good baseline to use. Informational interviews can also be a great research method, especially if you already know someone in this type of role. Conducting online research and reviewing position descriptions are great, but informational interviews can also allow you to hear directly from people already working in these types of roles that you're considering and help you gain even more practical insights into what your action plan should look like to help you make the transition to this new career field. Asking questions of someone who has already pursued this new career path can help you learn tips to streamline your efforts and also help you avoid potentially costly mistakes. You also want to consider your broader network. If you don't know anyone specifically who works in a role that you are considering, think about tapping into your network for a possible connection. Former colleagues, family members, friends, college alumni, neighbors, as well as any people from groups that you might be a part of, like book clubs or volunteer organizations, can help you gain connections to other people who could serve as valuable sources of information for you. Okay, so after you have fully reviewed and evaluated your career change plan and have a strong understanding of the types of skills, experience, and qualifications you might need to gain to make you attractive in this new type of role, you want to start thinking about ways to gain those skills and experience to help improve your marketability. You don't want to just jump into a new field with little or no skills or experience. So devising an action plan can help you ensure that you are prepared for success. So hopefully through your thorough analysis and research of your potential career change plan, you were able to successfully identify goals to help you get to where you want to be. Once you have an understanding of what those goals might be, it's time to start developing an action plan to help you achieve those goals. The first thing to ask yourself is, what can you do to make yourself more attractive to employers? If you are simply transitioning to a new career within your current field or moving into a very similar field, this can be as easy as simply revising and reorganizing your resume to better emphasize the transferable skills you already possess that are highly relevant to your new roles of interest. If you're making a more drastic change in career, this can be as complex as applying to and completing degree programs or certification courses. Either way, you want to have a good idea of what you can do to make yourself more marketable to a new audience. Hopefully, when you evaluated your career change plan, you were able to identify some skills or experience you may have been lacking and can make sure to include ways to gain those in your action plan. You also want your action plan to follow a logical order. Just like when you first began your current career field, you want to create some order to your career change action plan. You can't be expected to learn everything all at once, so you want to devise a plan that can help you tackle the essentials first, then build on new skills, experience, and attributes as you go along. It can often be helpful to start by building on the things you already know and making sure you understand what should come first, second, third, and so on. You can save yourself some frustration by creating ordered, short-term steps to help you achieve your long-term goals. It's also helpful to remind yourself that trying to bridge a large gap in skills can sometimes be time-consuming. This in itself is not a problem, so long as you are aware of the time and effort that might be required to make your goals a reality. If you need a job immediately, perhaps due to a layoff, then you might want to have an intermediate plan in place. It could be worth doing some research to see if there is a stepping stone job available that you could look for that might be easier to obtain than your ultimate career goal, while still helping you get to that ultimate end goal. So as you're developing your action plan for how you will approach entering your new career field, it's a good idea to start trying to find ways to build your skills and experience to make yourself an attractive candidate for those new types of roles. Volunteering might not be a relevant possibility for you depending on the career path you've selected, but it can be a great way to help you start applying new skills and building up your level of experience for jobs in a number of different industries. While not possible for all fields, it is worth considering and researching organizations that may be willing to take you on in a volunteer capacity so you can start generating experience and applying your skills in a way that will be more relevant to your new career of choice. This can also potentially give you material to include in a portfolio or provide you with an opportunity to discuss relevant skills and experiences on your resume or during future job interviews. You might even already have connections with a nonprofit organization that you could leverage, but there are also websites available like idealist.org and volunteermatch.org where you can search for volunteer opportunities. Another great way of gaining experience is a returnship or an adult internship. While you may think of internships as being solely for college students, there are some companies who offer adult internships and return to work programs for those who already have some career experience. Returnships are very similar to internships, but they are typically reserved for individuals who have spent some time away from the workforce, perhaps to care for a loved one or raise children. Either way, it can be helpful to pursue an internship, a development program, or a returnship with an organization in your new industry to help build experience and establish connections in this new field. So it's definitely something to consider adding to your action plan. Participating in a well-recognized internship or returnship program can not only gain you valuable experience, but it can also make you more attractive to future employers once you have completed the program and added it to your resume. Also, if you perform well in a returnship or other type of development program, you might be able to build professional relationships with people who are then willing to serve as a reference for you as you apply to other roles. Additionally, these types of programs are usually designed to provide you with a wealth of applicable skills and knowledge in a short period of time, just like with more traditional internships, so they can quickly add a lot of professional value for you. So, as was mentioned when we were discussing evaluating your career change plan, you've hopefully identified some areas where you need to enhance existing skills or build new skills entirely. This is often referred to as upskilling, and it can be extremely helpful when trying to enter a new career field. So think about what skills are most essential to this new career path and maybe prioritize a list of skills that you want to develop. You can then conduct some research on courses, tutorials, or other potential opportunities to learn and enhance these skills, starting with the most important skills on your list. In terms of the options that are available to help you with your upskilling, you can likely find a wealth of resources with a wide range of affordability. A simple search in Google or YouTube might yield free videos and tutorials, but there are also more structured and professional courses that you can take, including on websites like Coursera or Udemy, to learn new skills quickly and comprehensively. The skills that you can build in these types of courses, when combined with the application of these skills through volunteering or internships, can definitely add a lot of value to your resume. Other skills, trainings, or certifications can sometimes be costly and time-consuming, which, as we've mentioned before, is not in itself an issue, but you should be prepared for this before diving in. Certain careers might require paid training and certification courses, whereas others you might be able to learn through free resources. Either way, you want to make sure that you are analyzing the cost and time required versus the intended impact you are hoping this career change will have on your professional life. If it seems like the cost of changing careers greatly outweighs the impact, you might need to go back and reconsider your career change plan. Okay, so our last topic for today, before moving into our Q&A portion, revolves around adjusting your job search tactics. So once you have decided to change careers, you've evaluated your career change plan, you've developed an action plan to help you transition into this new role, and you've put in some work to gain some essential skills and experience, it's then time to put your plan into action and start searching for and applying to jobs within your field. To be perfectly candid, sometimes changing careers can be really difficult. It can take time to build up enough experience to be considered for higher level positions, and some employers might even question your decision to change careers. This is no reason to give up, though. But it is important to know that changes in career can be challenging, at least at first. Mentally preparing yourself for some of the challenges you could encounter can help make you sure that you are better equipped to navigate those challenges as they arise. As you continue trying to gain employment in your chosen career path, pay attention to what's working and what isn't, and try to adapt your strategies as needed. You don't want to go with just one specific tactic and hope it works, but rather diversify your strategies. Some of the strategies you want to employ, many of which you might have already used before in the past, can include using a variety of job titles and keywords to search and apply for jobs through different job boards, You might want to conduct a reverse job search where you research specific companies that are appealing to you and examine open roles posted on their website until one that fits your interest pops up. You can also attempt to network with other professionals in your new industry and potentially find jobs in the hidden job market. And you can also leverage your own direct connections to find potential job leads. All of these are good options to consider, and no one single option is the exact right approach each time. Because of this, you want to try multiple strategies simultaneously. Trying different strategies also means that some of your strategies will likely fail, but try not to let that discourage you. This is the exact reason why it's best to try more than one approach to help maximize your chances of success. So regardless of what strategies you choose to pursue to gain a new career, you want to make sure that you are highlighting your strengths, which can take shape in a number of different ways. For some fields, this might mean creating a portfolio or linking examples of your work to your LinkedIn profile in order to show off samples of what you can produce. Having past examples of your work to display to potential employers will give them more confidence that you can replicate that type of work for them in the future. In fact, that's often why a lot of professions are now including different types of assessments as part of their hiring process. For other fields where a portfolio isn't relevant, it can be helpful to identify a new person or two, perhaps from your volunteer experience or an internship, that can be added to your list of references. You want this to be someone who can vouch for the strengths you possess that are relevant to your new career field, as well as speak positively about your quality of work, your professionalism, and your other transferable skills. It can even be a good idea to ask people to provide you with a recommendation on your LinkedIn profile, as usually employers will review your LinkedIn before they ever reach out to your references. No matter what field you are choosing to enter, you want to develop relevant examples from your past work experience, from volunteer opportunities, from internships or returnships, and from your upskilling efforts that you can include on your resume, that you can write about in a cover letter, or that you can discuss during an interview or networking conversation that will help showcase your abilities as they relate to your new field of interest. As was touched on a bit earlier, you want to be thinking about your new audience and make sure that you're providing details about yourself and what you bring to the table that are going to be important, relevant, and desirable to them. So lastly, and this was touched on briefly in the previous slide, but I want to emphasize and explain this point in greater detail, as tailoring the information you write about in a resume or cover letter and the things that you discuss in an interview for a given role is extremely important. So for each job that you are considering applying to, you want to make sure that you are carefully paying attention to the position description. As you may have heard about in some of our other webinars or read about in some of our articles, applicant tracking systems are often used to scan resumes for keywords and phrases that are important to the role in question, and then rank you based on the number of keywords and phrases your resume includes, as well as how frequently they occur throughout your resume. Additionally, recruiters and hiring managers are rarely reading resumes word for word, at least during the first read through, so it's important to capture their attention by incorporating key terms and phrases from the job posting into your application materials. As it can be cumbersome to revamp your entire resume for each application, it's often a more effective strategy to include a professional summary and key skills section at the top of your resume that you can then tailor for each application. Using these kinds of sections to incorporate specific keywords and phrases, mirror the language used in the position description can be highly effective in maximizing your chances of making it to the interview stage. You will see these types of sections included in the FlexJobs resume samples included in the resources tab of this webinar. These sections give you a highly effective place to focus your tailoring efforts and prevent you from having to create an entirely different resume each time you apply to a different job. Tailoring your resume, your cover letter, and the examples that you discuss in interviews isn't just important for the purposes of applicant tracking systems. It also helps your audience, i.e. the hiring manager, gain a more immediate sense of how you might be a good fit for this specific role. You really want to make it as easy as possible for your audience to understand that you are a strong candidate for the position, rather than hoping they will just magically understand that you are the best option from their pool of candidates. Taking the time to tailor your application documents for each role does take time, and it can decrease the number of applications you can submit in a given time period, but it also drastically increases the quality of each application and improves your chances of success. Okay, so before we close out today, I will go ahead and recap the next steps for you to follow once you have decided to change careers and determined your new field of focus. So the first step is to evaluate your plan and think about your transferable skills and abilities. This also includes thinking about the skills or experience that you might be lacking that can make you more attractive to future employers. Next, you want to develop a list of ways to further build your skills and experience, and make sure that the action plan you create for yourself has some tangible, achievable ways to gain and compensate for any deficits you may currently have. Third, you want to adjust your job search tactics and strategies. Once you've progressed through the early stages of your action plan and are ready to apply for jobs in your new career field, you want to look at what's working and what isn't, and adjust your strategies accordingly. Lastly, make sure that you are tailoring your application documents for specific roles. You want to pay attention to what your audience wants to see. You want to review position descriptions thoroughly and make sure you're incorporating keywords and phrases into your resume, and plan out the relevant things that you have done or learned that will resonate with your audience that you can share through your resume, through your cover letter, and during interviews. Following these action steps can help you increase your chances of successfully changing your career and hopefully land you a position that will be more professionally fulfilling for you in the future. So as we close out our presentation and move into the Q&A portion of today's webinar, I do want to remind you that a copy of the recording, as well as resources presented, will be emailed within the next week. Be sure to check your spam folder just in case the email gets filtered out of your inbox. For even more tips, tricks, and resources, I recommend going to www.flexjobs.com/blog, which includes a vast amount of free articles, resources, webinars, and videos for members and non-members. Now we're going to open up our webinar to the Q&A portion. Please remember to type the questions into the Q&A area rather than the chat section. And please feel free to give a thumbs up to anyone else's question you'd also like to have answered so we know which are the most popular.
Okay, my name is Doug. I am one of the coaches here at FlexJobs. Are you able to hear me? If somebody could just throw a note in the chat. All right, my name is Doug. Oh, good. We've got some yeses coming in that you can hear me. Wonderful. Thanks for helping me out with that, folks. Well, good. As I said, my name's Doug. I'm one of the career coaches here at FlexJobs, and I'm happy to be here with you folks today to try to address some of these additional questions. And just looking through the Q&A, we've got a whole bunch of really good questions. I promise you, I'm going to do my best to get to as many of these today as I possibly can. But hopefully we'll all get some good information out of some of the answers. So let's start with this first one that's got the most votes so far, 24 votes. How do I explain an employment gap in my resume in order for me to get hired on a new job? And that is, a really, really good question. I'll tell you what, the thing with employment gaps is they're not necessarily, let me backstep just a little bit. Over the last couple, 2, 3 years, we've had a lot of transition, right, in people's, employment history and work, and there's been a lot of transition. So, if you are one of those individuals that does have some gap in your employment, by all means, you are not an anomaly. There's nothing strange about that within your work history. But the thing with employment gaps, really, and I'm speaking from even myself in the days when I was a hiring manager and looked at resumes in order to make hiring decisions, is question marks, right? What we want to do with addressing an employment gap is help a hiring manager or a recruiter understand, rather than just leaving a 2 year gap or a 5 year gap or whatever that might be. Help that employer or that hiring manager understand what was up there, what were the dynamics. So my encouragement is that you list that on your resume in order, in your chronological order, actually reverse chronological order, as you're addressing your work experience in that section of your resume. And you just include something like active career break, or professionally active career break, or planned career break, however that might describe it best for you. And use that title as you would like the title of a job, right? And then next to that, put the dates. So whatever dates. So from, October of this year to, January of whatever year, and include it in there, so you're addressing the dates and letting them know that there was a career break. That also helps with ATS, applicant tracking systems, because oftentimes an ATS is going to, perhaps grade you based on any gaps that it finds within your work history. And then just give one bullet, or maybe two, if there's pertinent information, an intentional pause to whatever, or a planned career break, to what, focus on, education, or care for a aging family member, or a geographic location. Give them just a little bit of insight that there was something like that. Don't need to go into detail. If by any means you have something you can demonstrate how you were productive, or if there was some applicable, volunteer work in there that would be, that would show some skill set. Perhaps you were a board member in an organization or something like that. Include a bullet. I wouldn't go into great detail unless you are using this, a really significant volunteer position to, talk about a number of things that you did. But other than that, I would keep it real short and sweet. 2 bullets. Let them understand, help them to understand, and that should really help you out. Okay, any guidance for those over 50 changing careers? Okay, coming from a guy here who is over 50 myself, so I'm in that age group myself. The thing with being a little bit older worker, and I just want to say this right on the front side, is we are not trying to mislead somebody about our age. Eventually, if somebody interviews us, certainly hires us, and things of that nature, they're going to find out, our age. Or if they interview us, they're going to have a general sense of our age when we're on video with them in an interview or whatnot. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to gain their interest in us as a qualified candidate that they would like to talk to, before somebody may make a quick assessment or judgment about somebody because of age. So a couple of things that I would suggest is, number one, try to keep your dated experience That includes school dates as well as employment dates and certification dates and things of that nature, to 10 years, 15 at the max, if you can. If you've got some older work experience that goes beyond that, that's really applicable and it qualifies you, what you could do is go back, say, 10 years of dated experience, and then include another section that's entitled additional professional highlights, and include one or maybe two of those previous positions that help to qualify you without dates. And there's kind of a key point. Don't put the dates in there. It's letting them see that you've got these qualifications, but it's not really being, real clear that it might have been in 1999, right? And look for another thing too, as far as an older applicant, look for opportunities to learn something new. If there's a new application or a new software or something like that, demonstrate that on your resume, include that. Avoid using older tools like word perfect, right? So some things that are kind of legacy, or perhaps even we could say archaic softwares, things like that. Be careful. One last tip, if you're on LinkedIn, I will make this suggestion. And also, if you're not on LinkedIn, I'm going to suggest you go get on LinkedIn, but go out to LinkedIn, research that company, go into the people tab at that company's page, LinkedIn page, and start to look at faces. If there is a diversity of ages and faces and things of that nature, if they've got younger workers and older workers, that may not be as big of an issue at that particular organization. Okay, let's jump on to the next question here. What if I had a meandering career path? I love that choice of word, a meandering career path. Wonderful. I've done a lot of jack of all trades jobs for small employers, and I've had different jobs in different fields. I have a diverse skill set and a lot of transferable skills, but nevertheless, almost every job that I apply for sort of looks like a career change to employers. That's another good question. Goodness, you folks have some good questions here. This is the way that I would address that. Oftentimes, we can come from this perception, because we did this at one time in resumes many years ago, is it would be, it would be basically a chronological list of everything that you have ever done, and we detail out every position and all of that sort of thing. Really, I want to encourage you to think of, although you are going to put chronological work history in a resume, along with a good solid summary section, technology section, education, and all of those sorts of things, think of your resume in terms of a marketing piece that's designed to speak to that one hiring manager at that one organization. And if you kind of have that frame of reference, that mindset, you don't need to put, include and list everything that you've done at every place. Now, the titles may vary from one place to another, but if there is a position that you're applying for, have your resume showcase and talk about the skills that you used at each of those particular places that are applicable to them. Right. So if you did, because you mentioned you've got, just a variety of diverse skill sets, perhaps at maybe most, if not all of those places, or many of those places that you worked, there were common threads of things that you use, skills that you used, projects that you managed, the impact that you had, that are a common thread. Focus on those things to have that resume seem like there's a consistency as much as possible. Now, there may be variation, and that's okay, right? That's all right. But make sure that, as much as you can, kind of look for a common thread and talk about those things, emphasize those things. Another thing that you're going to want to do is, in that summary section and key skills section at the top, give them 2, 3, 4 sentences in a summary paragraph that talk about the skills and the qualifications and the qualities and the strengths that you bring that are applicable to them. So even though some of your job titles may vary and be different from one to another, you're giving them a snapshot before they get to your employment history of the good things that you bring to them. Okay. Next question. How do I write a cover letter for a job I really want, but aren't exactly qualified for, or don't necessarily have the related experience for? Well, tell you what, there are definitely some things you can do, and number one, make sure, of course, that your resume is solid and demonstrating some of the skills that you do have that transfer. The thing that I would do is look at that job, and even though you may not have qualifications, if it asks for 2 to 4 years of working in this particular position or something of that nature, that let's not look at that right now, but let's look at, and I'm not saying that's not important, so please forgive me. I don't mean to diminish that. But what I want to encourage you to do is look at the skills that you do have and focus on those. Focus on the transferable skills. If you've got any current applicable training, let's just say you're moving into a different field, you've been in an administrative field, and you really want to get into data, data management, and you took a Google Analytics course, showcase that, or any courses that you've taken on, Coursera, or Udemy, or LinkedIn Learning, or Skillshare, or any of those sort of things. So take that cover letter, and in that first paragraph, number one, talk about your passion for the role, your excitement about the company, research them, find out something so you can make a connection, and then talk about the key skills or the transferable skills that they need that you do have. So even if you don't have maybe 2 to 4 years of experience in thus and such, you've got some other skills that are good, and they're quality skills. Talk about that. Major on the majors for you, right? Don't major on the minors, or don't try to disqualify yourself before you have an opportunity, because I'm sure you've got some good qualifications. Showcase those, bring them to their attention, and help them focus on that. Okay, so I'm changing career fields completely. Do you have any suggestions as to how to list my transferable skills in my resume? That's a good question. I think we kind of touched on that a little bit before when we were talking about this idea of a summary section, and really giving them clear examples of the qualifications that you bring. What we want to do is thinking in terms of this. Once your resume has helped you to cooperate with ATS, you've made it into a database, and they're looking at your resume now. Keep in mind, you've got 4 to whatever the statistic is, right? 4 to 11 seconds. Speaking from honest, practical experience, that's real accurate anywhere in there. But the point is, you've got a quick glance that they're going to give you. What you want to do when you are shifting is make a good case in that summary section that you've got the skills, because what you don't want to do is just immediately, if you don't have a summary section and you just have your, at the top of your resume is your most recent position, and the title doesn't make sense for them, they may just skip past you. But what you want to do is make a good case in that summary section, have a key skill section of 1 and 2 and 3 word qualifications and key skills, and adapt those to the job posting, noting things that you have and that you bring that could be very interesting to them. So make a good case for all those great qualities that you've got in your summary section, so they can see that before they get down to the most recent title or two. And then once again, in your bullets under those titles, think about times that you've done things that would be helpful for them, that are applicable to that role, and list those out if you can. Let's see, I think we got time for maybe one more question. What if I do have experience in my field that is very old, and since then I have worked in another field? Good question. Okay, what I would do is something very similar to what we talked about before when we talked about that ageism piece. Is I would list your most recent experience. Once again, strong summary, strong key skills. List your most recent experience. Resist the temptation to get real wordy about that if it's not applicable, right? Just hit the highlights, hit the things that might be applicable to them, and then quickly go to a additional professional experience section, or a previous professional highlights, or something of that nature. Include that older work experience that's applicable, the location, the company, the title, no dates, and make sure, do your very best, once again, to condense that more recent experience so that the applicable title appears on the first page of your resume, so they can look at your summary section and quickly get their eye down on that first page to see relevant experience that's real relevant to them. You know what, we're at our time here, but I'm going to answer one more question here. Is it considered appropriate to follow up with an organization, HR department, that sort of thing, after submitting an online application to confirm receipt of the application, next steps, etc.? Is it frowned upon or looked at as pushy to call versus just simply waiting patiently for a reply from the organization? You know what? Yes, I would definitely try to reach out to them. I don't think that it's, certainly not pushy to reach out and follow up. I think what it does is it shows initiative in a myriad of other applicants that may not do that, right? It may be the piece that sets you apart. And what I would do is, if you somehow have, some clarity of how to reach them, if you have an email of sorts, or get out on LinkedIn and search that company, begin to look for a contact, an HR person, a department manager, somebody that might be over that department, and try your best to reach out and connect with them. I just want to let you know that I'm really excited. I recently submitted my application for this, and I would be very excited to have an opportunity to talk to you. Look forward to hearing back from you, that kind of a thing. If you're not able to reach them, what you might even want to do as well is try to make contact with somebody else in that department, even if it's another person on a lateral, sort of position to what you've applied for. Try to connect with people. I recently applied to that company. Can you, do you have a few minutes to just tell me what is it that you love about that organization? What you're trying to do is make some connection, because quite honestly, you never know when that particular person may engage in conversation with you, may think to themselves, wow, this sounds like a good person for that role, and perhaps might even say, hey, forward your resume over to me. I'll be happy to make sure that my supervisor looks at that. So, yes, I would definitely take time to follow up, to network, to connect as you can. If they very clearly give you a directive, hey, I'll be in touch, don't call us, we'll call you. You want to make sure that you're honoring certain things too. You don't want to push after they've told you to not push, right? But also, if that directive hasn't come from them, then, by all means, take your opportunities that you have to connect with those folks. Well, I tell you what, it has been good to be with you folks here at the webinar today. Always appreciate all you folks who attend these. Just as a reminder, if you want to make sure that you check your email in about a week, you should see a copy of this webinar along with the resources included and included with the webinar and talked about in the webinar attached to that email. If for some reason you don't see that, make sure to check your spam folder. Sometimes emails can show up in the spam folder and get filtered over there. So just be cautious of that, but we will get that email out to you in about a week. On behalf of all of us here at FlexJobs, thank you so much for being a part of these webinars. Want to encourage you to come back and join us again for another one. You have yourself a great day, and all the best to you in your career search. Bye now.